welcome back to the second annual Teacher Town Hall, live from Education Nation under the big tent here in New York City. I'm Brian Williams, and we're joined today by hundreds of teachers in this room, many thousands across the country watching live on MSNBC and streaming on the web. We want to talk about innovation. Obviously, you're handed what you're handed in life and in the classroom, but it's what you do with that opportunity and those students that can make a huge difference. I am joined here on stage by two more educators. John Hunter is with us. He's been teaching for over 30 years. He's an elementary school teacher for gifted and talented kids, Charlottesville, Virginia. And Brian Crosby, who's been teaching for some 30 years himself in Sparks, Nevada. Over the next half hour, we will turn our attention to this subject, and we're going to look at it through the eyes of both of these gentlemen. We're also going to hear what folks in our audience have to say. We have two microphones set up to hear from educators, and as we've already seen, no shortage of opinion here in this room. What is your story? It's kind of legendary among educators who've seen it. What did you choose to do? You said that when you first became a teacher, you viewed it as a blank slate.
That's right.
And you threw some spaghetti against the wall. What'd you do?
Yeah, my first job interview, Brian, the supervisor, I asked her, what should I do? And she said, what do you want to do? And as a teacher, to be given that kind of open space, a kind of mandate-less position to be in where you can create out of the emptiness, it allowed me to create that kind of template for my students where I can ask them, what would you like to do today? What is your passion? What drives you? I think some teachers mentioned that if the students have an interest and you build towards that, then they can come with more passion to learning.
And you started a game.
Yes, it's called the World Peace Game. It's a gigantic political science simulation, towering plexiglass structure. 4 teams, 30 kids, they play for 8 weeks, and they solve an interlocking set of problems, of world problems, and they try to do it without combat if possible, reading Sun Tzu's The Art of War.
And you, I'm gonna adjust your microphone while we talk to hear more of you. There we go. You build in a loss, a defeat in your game.
Yeah, you know, life is not all success the first time. So we allow the students to experience things as they will, as they go, so they can include the failures. They have the luxury to fail, because that's really part of the learning process.
And how many people have you freaked out because that's not any part of a course curriculum? We don't read this in the catalog.
You know, I think most of them. The nice thing is we had great visionary principals and administrators that I've been in touch with who allow you, who trust you as a professional, knowing you know what to do, and supporting you with resources and help to make that possible. With that kind of support, that kind of visionary leadership, and teachers who are professionals, we know what to do, we can do the job, help us to do it.
Now imagine that. What a revolutionary thought. So Brian, this debate is so interesting socioeconomically. Kids in well-off places come into the classroom in the morning, putting away any number of things. iPhones, Blackberries, MacBook Airs, iPads, certainly iPods. They stow them as if preparing for takeoff, sit in linear rows and face a one type of media with a human in the front of the room. Children in areas without the means don't come into the classroom with that electronics-based life, and sometimes the classroom is the only place they're exposed.
That's right. Including
your classroom in Nevada. Tell us about it.
Well, actually, I really lucked out. We had 30 of the original iBook computers when they first came out with FireWire, and they'd go wireless. And we had those computers for a while, and they got checked out throughout the school, but we got a new set of laptops for that, and the batteries in these iBooks were dead. And so I went to my principal and I said, hey, how would you like us to pilot the only one-to-one laptop program in our school district? And all we have to do is buy batteries, and we did that, and then we were off and running. And All my students have their own blogs. We use Flickr to host our pictures and video clips that we take throughout the day. And then we've been part of some huge projects that have just been mind-blowing. Probably the one I'm best known for was one that just fell in my lap. At my school, if you're called down to the office 15 minutes before school starts, you know you're getting a new student. And I wasn't supposed to be getting a new student because I had 3 more students than both the other 4th grades. And I get down to the office and the secretary tells me, well, you're getting a new student, but don't worry because you're never going to see her. And I said, I'm never going to see her. And they said, well, yeah, she has leukemia and she's undergoing chemo and she can't come to school, but by law, she has to be placed in a classroom and then she'll get homeschooled. So to make a long story short, we got her a computer and we Skyped her into class every day. And we just put a laptop computer in the front row. And what was great about it was her head showed up on the laptop the same size as all the other kids' heads. And if I was teaching a lesson in front of the room, she could see, she could hear. I could see if she raised her hand to ask a question or answer a question. If we were doing cooperative learning of some kind, we'd just whirl that laptop around and she was part of that group. And the other kids would talk to her and whatever. Her little sister went to school and we'd send books home and that kind of thing. And then, of course, anything we did like that was reason to write on our blogs. Within 2 weeks of the first day we did that, we produced a 5-minute video on how we did that, and the kids wrote all the parts to it and narrated it and the whole bit, and that's been downloaded on the web now over 1 million times.
These 2 gentlemen are educators. This sounds familiar to our audience because our audience is educators. These are the kinds of victories and breakthroughs happening on a daily basis. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from some of the educators in this room as our Teacher Town Hall continues. Back here as we continue our conversation, we're under that tent on the world-famous skating rink, our backyard here at 30 Rock, where we're lucky enough to work every day and where we spend more time here than we do with our families, but enough about that right now. We're back inside the tent, continuing with our educators here on stage. Before we went to the break, the conversation took us into this area of technology. Both of you gentlemen in the break were saying it's just a tool. I'm seeing now iPads for preschoolers. I'm seeing preschoolers, no surprise, take to iPads beautifully. What should we think about that kind of thing as someone who introduced laptops, was among the forerunners of laptops in your classroom?
You know, I think we've got to go there. I mean, that's definitely part of this divide that you were talking about. And it's how we're going to connect kids. It's the wave of the future. If you have experience with that as you go through your schooling and through high school and into college, you're going to come out with certain skills that if you don't have that, you're not going to come out with certain skills. And I think it's imperative, the communication skills, the connecting skills, the safety issues that are involved. To me, it's like if you never gave a kid a pair of scissors till they got to high school. If we're not introducing this pretty early on and talking about those issues, then we're in for a heap of trouble.
Though those round edge scissors you guys gave us are just useless. You realize that?
We don't do that anymore.
You realize we could handle better scissors the whole time,
yes.
And you gave us those round edged. I think I speak for everybody. And yet the game you pioneered that has taught so many kids is the low-techest game imaginable.
Yeah, I think the highest tech thing is the pointer I use to point to the pieces on the board. It's a 4-level plexiglass structure, outer space level, aircraft level, ground and sea and undersea. And there are thousands of game pieces, and they're given 50 interlocking problems that they have to solve without combat if possible. We put them in a critical, creative thinking situation with no map, but we have a trusting relationship. And that, I think, is the key to how most education really works well, is that relationship between teacher and student one-on-one.
I'd like to get you an should probably go to the Pentagon just for a day. I'm just saying. Thank you very much to both gentlemen for being up here with us. And John Hunter and Brian Crosby have been terrific examples of course, what we're seeing in the room and across the country. And we'll take a break.